Hi there, welcome back to Skirmish Miniature Gaming. Luke here, and I hope you're here to join us. Just going to be doing a video today for SkirmishCast, which is going to be the top 5 most wanted skirmish miniature games that we all might want or might look into getting. These are kind of my top 5, but I'm kind of going to introduce games from other people that other people have said that they're looking forward to being interested in. And what I want to do is for you guys to get into the live comments to let me know what your top skirmish miniature games that you'd like to see from your favorite franchise. It could be a game, film, TV series, comic book, novels, book series. So get into the comments and let me know what your favorite genre or franchise would be, or your personal, could it be even your own creation and your own idea to turn into a skirmish miniature game. Just a bit of fun to do on the weekend, just an extra video to put up for SkirmishCast. So let me know in the comments, guys, what you think and how are you all doing at the end of the day. Are you still in lockdown? Are you not in lockdown anymore? We're coming towards the end of ours. I think we've gone past the peak in the UK and we've got an announcement on Sunday for ours. So it should be interesting to see what happens with that. But like I say, guys, I'm going to go through my specific top 5 and also from elsewhere on the internet what people have said that they would like to see as a skirmish miniature game. And obviously I'm going with skirmish in particular here, so singular models, like character models as opposed to an army. And like I say, get into the comments and let me know what your favorite or that I've mentioned or that you would like to see personally go up. But we start off here with bit of an idea of mine more than such a franchise, but there have been games based on it. You might have known the Age of Mythology game, very similar to such as I think it's the same developers who did Age of Empires. We have had smaller games, I believe, close to this idea, but they've never really hit it off, or they've never really actually been produced to the point where they could be really good games, and not necessarily from a skirmish perspective either. But Age of Mythology, so if you didn't play the old Age of Mythology PC game or games, because I believe there were expansions and things as well, it covers you having an army from like the Greeks, the Norse, so like the Nordic Vikings and Egyptians were the 3 core armies that you could choose from, or civilizations or factions. And then they did expansions for things like the Chinese Empire, and they brought in all their mythological creatures, the Japanese, the Mayans, and the Mongolians. And I think this could be a really cool setting for a skirmish game. You could get all of the mythical creatures that come along with those beliefs and those civilizations. So like your Greeks, you've got like your Minotaurs. How cool would it be to have some singular models and units, especially like historical heroes and mythical heroes? You've got like all the Ragnarok beasts for the Norse, that they all fight in their mythological lore. You've got the Egyptians. Well, the Egyptians don't need any talking about there. You've got like the all of like the incubi and that kind of thing that could come into it. The Sphinxes and things like that. I think this could be a really cool game, especially with those mythical beasts involved. You could have singular mythical beasts which you could use as miniatures alongside the soldiers, depending on what you'd kind of want with those, I suppose. But yeah, let me know what you think about that one, guys. I want Bretonnians, says Rampage Games. Definitely, Bretonnians need to come back. Imagine if Bretonnians came into Warcry. Just put that into your mind there. I think that could be pretty cool. Would love to see that happen. But yeah, Age of Mythology kind of idea. I think that would be really, I'd be proper into that. If there was a properly made game, I would be proper up for that. You know, you could have other mythical creatures in there, such as sirens and all that kind of thing. If you haven't checked out the old Age of Mythology game, by the way, do go and check that out. Great thing to play during lockdown. I think I've still got the old game somewhere, but was one that rung up in my mind. Would definitely be a setting worth doing, I reckon, and would be definitely one worth throwing in there. Now then, let's go on to my second. We've got a good mix in these 5 here of different genres, different tastes and things like that. But my second one, and this I've seen quite a lot everywhere, some of you might laugh at this, but Pokemon. Now, Pokemon is a game that I've seen before. A couple have tried to get kicked off, but haven't necessarily gotten the rights for it, that kind of thing, because it is quite a big franchise. And you might be thinking, well, how would you turn a skirmish miniature game like on a tabletop, like a 3x3 size mat or something like that? with, say, Age of Mythology, that would definitely be like a 3x3 map, singular models, maybe like 10 to 15 models, maybe less, on the battlefield for each faction. But with something like Pokemon, you could still do maybe more like a Kill Team Warcry size map, maybe a 3x3. But you could either go for the style of each player chooses to battle each other. So you're the trainer, you have a selection of 6 Pokemon, for example. You could set up a 3x3 battlefield to be like different terrain each time, and that changes what happens. It could benefit the type of Pokemon that you're playing with, etc. I think that could be quite a fun idea. If you've ever played any of the Pokemon games or are familiar with it, it could definitely fit into a miniature game setting. You already have all of the Pokemon there. You could release each generation of Pokemon. You could have some sort of mechanic in battle where your Pokemon evolves at a certain stage during the battle, or you could just do it so that before the battle begins and you're building your points list of your Pokemon roster, then you could have you could pay lower points for the first evolution of the Pokemon, or you could pay higher points for the higher levels. So if you have Charmander, you could pay like only a few points. If you go for Charizard, you pay higher points level, and then you could put a cap on how many higher evolution Pokemon you have in your team. But let me know what you think of that one, guys. The other thing is that I thought would be definitely good. You could do both of these and fit it into the same style game, but there were the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games that were released, which would suit this even better. That's how you could kind of fit like a campaign into it, per se. And you could even play that solo. So for those of you who don't know, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is more where there's no trainers involved. The Pokemon themselves talk to each other, and they have their own kind of character. You could design your own Pokemon character, for example, and then you build a little team of these this Pokemon warband, if you like, and they kind of go around these mystery dungeons, solving problems, gaining clues, uncovering treasure, that kind of thing, helping out other Pokemon within the world of Pokemon with their own problems. I think that could be really cool. You could add like RPG elements to that as well. I could see that being a really fun game. But let me know what you think in the comments. And if you've only just joined us, guys, I want to hear in the comments, live comments, and if you're watching post live, what your favorite most wanted skirmish miniature games would be. So get involved in the comments and let me know what yours would be, or your ideas, or whether you like mine, for example. But we'll go on to the third one here, and another one kind of from my youth, really, that's kind of carried on with me that I thought would be a really awesome setting for a skirmish miniature game, and that is Avatar: The Last Airbender, or something in and around that. It wouldn't necessarily have to be based on that. And I'm talking about the animated series here, not the film. The film was absolutely awful. But for anyone who knows about it, essentially this universe is based on the 4 elements, and is based on a planet or an Earth that's very similar to ours, but you have different continents, and these continents are owned by the 4 elementals, and the people that live in these regions are based on aspects and religions and things like that from our own existence, and they're put into that universe, and they then you have wind, earth, wind, water, or fire are the 4 main elements. If you didn't want to base it on Avatar: The Last Airbender, you could introduce even more elementals per se, and you could have different factions. How cool would that be? If you know what I'm on about with Avatar: The Last Airbender, there is these 4 elements. For example, the Earth Nation, they are able to move the Earth and throw rocks at different people, things like that. You'd still be able to have different units and things that can do different things. Some are stronger than others, as you would in any miniature game. I think there could be some really awesome mechanics in this with this genre, and that you've got endless kind of elements that you could bring into the game if you wanted to add more stuff. And then if you wanted to base it on the actual Avatar: Last Airbender, you've got many characters in there that you can already add in, design models on, that kind of thing. And it's got a great backstory to it as well. So you could either play through as the Avatar: Last Airbender storyline, or you could create one of the thousands of avatars that have been previously, and have your own avatar and have your own campaign run with them. And that I think that could work really well. Another one of my favorite franchises that I think would be really cool to bring in as a skirmish miniature game. But let me know what you guys think about that one. I think that's another pretty cool one to add to the list. And like I say, you wouldn't have to necessarily base it on that, but certainly I think it could be pretty cool. Josh says Overwatch tabletop game. Overwatch would be awesome. Overwatch is certainly one. Like the game itself is obviously you've got multiple characters in there. You know what? That's a very good one, Josh. I like that suggestion. Zombie Dad's also messaged there saying the movie was terrible, though. The movie was god awful. But that's not to say that the TV series wasn't amazing, and you can't say that if you haven't watched Avatar: Last Airbender, watch it. And I can fairly say that a miniature game based on it would be amazing. And obviously, I think Netflix are also planning or in pre-production right now for a Netflix TV series on Avatar, like live action. If you didn't know that, guys, so definitely, if you're an Avatar fan, check that one out when that comes out, because that's, like, fingers crossed, that's going to be amazing. But yeah, going back to what Josh said, Overwatch, certainly the different characters you get in Overwatch, the style of the game that it has already, you could just have a free-for-all. Imagine how cool that would be. Or you could actually create your own warband and team of the Overwatch characters versus another team. That is one that I didn't think of, Josh. I've played enough Overwatch to know how cool it is, and that's a great call on that one. Another great one to add in there. That's why I want you guys to get in the comments, because it's great to hear what ideas you guys are coming up with as well. Obviously, you've got all these different first-person shooter genres and things like that you can easily quite come up with, because they already have the game types there already on the actual video game. So, you have like free-for-all or team deathmatch, that kind of thing. You can bring those straight over to the miniature game itself and the characters themselves and put them straight in there. I think that's a great idea. And bring the aspects from the video game straight into the miniature game, I think, can quite easily be done. But yeah, guys, keep on in the comments with your ideas and what you think of what I've gone through so far. So the first 3 Age of Mythology style skirmish miniature game, Pokemon battles or Mystery Dungeon style game. I think that could be really cool. These are not necessarily in a top 5 order, by the way. These are just 5 that I've come up with that I think would be really cool. There are a couple that missed out on these 5 that I wanted to do, but I wanted to keep the video nice and concise. And then the third one that we've just done is Avatar: Last Airbender, which I think could be a really cool universe to introduce. Now, a slightly different one that I came up with, which I think would be a really, really cool game. And let me know if there is a miniature game out there already that has done this, but I don't think there is. I think it could be very unique, and if someone got hold of this and wanted to put it out there, I think a Kickstarter would get it going very, very quickly. And that is, the closest thing I can relate this to is a horror survival game, skirmish miniature game. Now, if any of you have ever played, the most recent thing I can think of is something like Dead by Daylight. That came out, was quite a popular game, wasn't really meant to be very popular, but was in the end. And if you've played that, basically it's a horror survival game where you have a group of up to 4 characters of your own design. And basically, with it being horror survival, you can drop into any sort of map or setting, and you have all these famous horror characters that are coming after you, and you have to try and survive from them and hide from them. Imagine how cool that could be. I mean, think of something like the Walking Dead miniature game, which we're going to be bringing onto the channel soon. You have to sneak around and not be heard, and you can make noises by accident, that kind of thing, and they come after you. So you'd have one player or an NPC, so that you could play it solo, playing as, Freddy Krueger, Danny Johnson from the Ghostface from Scream, Michael Myers, the Shape. All of these different horror characters. You could have it, Pennywise, that kind of thing, show up, and you could just have that single character. You have up to 4 miniatures that you could have designed yourself, or you could have some really cool ones, outlandish characters that you usually have in these kind of games, that are all different kinds of characters, and they have their own stat lines and their own class system. Maybe it's like a medic or whatever, or a close combat dude, or a sniper, that kind of thing. Build your group of 4, choose the horror character you want to face off against, and then you have to survive so many rounds or achieve a certain objective. And if you wanted to pitch forward some sort of campaign system, you could face off against multiple of these horror characters over a certain amount of time, and you have like an injury system, that kind of thing. I think it could be such a cool idea. Let me know what you think about that one. A Dead by Daylight horror survival type miniature game. Easily could be skirmish based, perfect setting for it in my opinion. And yeah, I'd be really excited to see that kind of thing come out. The Walking Dead game has already been very popular, and that's a similar kind of setting and game system, which I think, very similar, could work very much so with the Dead by Daylight style. So, and with all of these games that I'm suggesting, by the way, there's so much DLC that you could release for these things. So, per se, so like expansions. So there are so many extra things that you could come up with for these games to keep releasing. They're all games that you've got plenty of length behind them. So like time span that you could put behind these. They wouldn't just lose content straight away and not have enough material is the word I'm looking for to go forwards. Zombie Dad says, is there the Pictures Skirmish game? The Pictures? I don't know what you mean by the Pictures, Zombie Dad, so you'll have to elaborate a bit on that one. I'm not sure what the Pictures is. So you'll have to just let me know. The picture I know is the drinking pitcher that you get where you get a massive pitcher full of beer. But yeah, let me explain that one a bit more to me, and I might be able to discuss that one. We've already had Overwatch in there. Overwatch would be a really cool idea. We're going on to the fifth and final one now, but we've had Age of Mythology, so your Greeks, your Norse, your Egyptians, Chinese Empire, Japanese Empire, the Mayans, things like that, all thrown in with their mythological creatures for a skirmish game. How cool would that be? I'd definitely be excited for that. Pokemon battles or mystery dungeon style miniature game. How awesome would that be? Could easily be a skirmish miniature game and would be very popular from the off. Pokemon's a massive game. And then Avatar: The Last Airbender / an Elementals style faction-based skirmish game. I think that could be awesome. Imagine the different elementals that you could have in there and the different fighter options that you could have and how they could interact with each other in a fight. Amazing. And you could make a great campaign out of that game, geez. And then we've just had the Dead by Daylight horror survival style game, which I'd be right onto that. I think that's one of my favorites out of these five, to be honest. But certainly we'll go on to the fifth one in a moment. Zombie Dad has commented, he said, Witcher. See. Now, I was about to mention just before we go on to the fifth one, and I was actually going to do it after it, to be fair, but so I might leave it until the end. I'll discuss Witcher in a moment, Zombie Dad, because I was going to bring it up. Yeah, I thought you typoed it, but a picture skirmish game could be just as fun. A drinking style miniature game, where instead of like injury table for the for a campaign, you have to drink. I think that's definitely something that has to be designed somewhere. But anyways, The Witcher I'll discuss in a moment, because they're one of the ones. That's one of the ones that I just about missed out on. That being in this five that I did the list for. But the fifth and final one, and if you've seen the thumbnail, you'll probably know what it's going to be. But the fifth and final one, I am amazed that this genre and that this franchise has not yet been bought up and turned into a skirmish miniature game, and that is the Transformers franchise. And some of you might be thinking, well, Transformers sucks, and it's the films are awful, but Transformers has been popular before the films. The first film was good in my opinion, but some of the films aren't great. But I'm talking original OP Transformers, as in the TV series, so like the cartoon TV series that they used to be. And the anime style kind of thing that it turned into as well. I think the newer stuff's more anime anyway, but based on the old TV series on Cybertron, Autobots, Decepticons, there are hundreds of different Autobots and Decepticon characters. You could get blisters for each one. A starter set for this would be easy. Autobots, Decepticons, the most popular ones in each kind of thing. That kind of simple cartoon style miniature where there's just a few simple colors that you have to put onto your miniature, some easy, what were they called, overlays that you can put on, like stamps, that you can easily watermark onto your miniatures. I can see it working so well as a miniature game. The individual blisters that you could do for each Transformer, you could have Optimus Prime standing up in his stance, and then you could have his transformed miniature in the same blister with him as the truck or whatever. I think it would work the best out of those 5 for me would be Transformers, and I'm absolutely shocked that that nobody's gotten onto this already. I've seen forums everywhere on Reddit, etc., on the internet talking about why has there not been a Transformers game. One of the reasons behind it is probably because Hasbro still owns Transformers, and they release their own toy lines. Obviously, that's the main thing with Transformers is the toys. And so communicating with Hasbro to try and release a miniature game would probably, I imagine, be quite difficult, and the pitch would have to be extremely good. And I can only imagine that they would take the majority of the cut from that game if you were to design it, even if you were to design it. So to have the rights for it. But imagine how awesome that would be. A skirmish miniature game based on the original Transformers. And Zombie Dad does say, I have a memory of a Transformers skirmish game. There may have been one at some point, and it's another thing I was about to bring up, Zombie Dad, is that there have been many skirmish games that have obviously gone under that haven't materialized or haven't stuck around for very long. Transformers isn't, not as a proper skirmish miniature game, tabletop war game, I'm not aware of one. Just as an example here, because it's a fine line. There are some board games. You've mentioned The Witcher. The Witcher already has a board game, but a board game is not a miniature game. It's just not. It's got a set path that you have to follow on a board. It's not an open tabletop 3x3 or whatever mat you have with scenery or terrain. There's a fine line, to be fair, but you can definitely distinguish which one it is or isn't. But I've searched all 5 of these anyway before putting them on this list, and there's not a current Transformers skirmish game. But if there was at some point, maybe there was. If there was, it didn't last long because I have not seen anything on it. But there may well have been like a board-based game or a model collecting system or something, possibly. For example, before we got the new Marvel Crisis Protocol miniature game, there was the Marvel Hero Clicks. Is just a collector's models collectors type thing going on, rather than an actual miniature game with a whole rule book and system behind it. It's quite different. But I yesterday, very late, like last night actually, so I haven't had too many replies for it, put up a message on the community section of our YouTube channel, and just put out the question for people: what would your favorite franchise or something be to turn into a skirmish miniature game? And I tell you what, surprisingly enough, people weren't that creative. Most people actually came out and said reboots more than anything. So games that we have now that they'd love to see, and I can agree with you on this. Franchises that have already been used, or games such that Games Workshop even have, for example, that they just want to see rebooted and made into a better game. And I can fully agree with that. Haven't put them on this list because this is kind of a list of games that we haven't really had as skirmish miniature games systems that I would just love to see as games. I'm sure lots of you would as well. And I've tried to come up with some good popular ones there that I thought would be good ideas. Let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas before we finish up the vid. But just a few other things to cover here. We had Zombie Dad there mention The Witcher franchise, and another one that I thought of, a big game franchise, would be Mass Effect. I love Mass Effect. It would be a fantastic skirmish miniature game. I'm currently, if you haven't checked it out, guys, check out the campaign I'm running for Core Space. I'm just doing a solo campaign with a crew. Very Mass Effect-esque Borderlands style game, skirmish miniature game, where you take your crew throughout a sci-fi setting. There's an end goal, there's a campaign, there's a storyline behind it. You have your crew, you can add other crew members throughout the campaign. It's a fantastic little system. It's a nice, simple game to play, and it looks great as well. So I think just released the second episode yesterday. So if you haven't checked out that new campaign, do check that out, just because I was going along the lines of Mass Effect. And the only reason I haven't put Mass Effect on this list, even though it's my favorite game ever, the second game for Mass Effect, my favorite game ever, and I've read some of the novels and things, and I think it's a great universe to be able to do a miniature game with. But there are a few miniature games already out there, such as Core Space, that are very similar already, and that's why I haven't put it in there. But it's obviously very different as a universe. It's in its own right, different characters, species, and things like that. And so you could easily make a miniature game on that as well. But The Witcher is a very interesting one. Definitely a universe you could easily do it, a miniature game within. And there's two ways you could go about a Witcher franchise for a skirmish miniature game. And that's because you have the Witchers themselves, so you could either do it would be more an RPG hunting style game, Monster Hunter style game, where you have design your own Witcher, or you can take, maybe in the starter set, there's the Witcher Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher itself, and you would take them and you'd have maybe 3 or 4 different monsters from the universe in the starter set. You could turn it into a campaign system, take injuries on an injury table, that kind of thing, upgrade your weapons and things like that. But I don't know how you do that with single battles against monsters and things like that, taking pay to defeat them. Maybe think of, like, say, the new Warcry systems where you got the Monsters and Mercenaries expansion, for example, where you could fight different factions within The Witcher, fight with other factions and realms within The Witcher. Is it the continent? In The Witcher, they might be hiring you to help them in some sort of battle against another faction, and then in between those, you could have a Monsters and Mercenary style expansion where you're fighting the monsters and earning coin for doing that because you're a Witcher. So it's a cool idea. I do like the universe within The Witcher. The games are amazing. And I certainly think that would be a great idea for a skirmish miniature game. Let me know before we start finishing up the vid here, guys, if you're watching, if there's any other suggestions you'd have, franchises or anything like that you would turn into a skirmish miniature game that you love, hold dear to your heart, that you think would be great to turn into a game. Otherwise, like I say, we had people messaging in last night on this poll that I put out on the community page, and the majority of people just came back and said, I'd love Kill Team to get a proper reboot. And I can't disagree at all with people's opinion on that. Kill Team is a game that's needed to be rebooted for a good, probably since the start, really, but definitely since Warcry came out. I think Warcry came out and made it look like the game that it actually is, which is a bit overcomplicated. Some rules need patching up. We still get small rules wrong with it. It's just, it needs fixing. It needs simplifying. If it gets simplified, you'll get more people interested in it because it's an easier game to play. It can be too long to play, to be honest. It's such a big franchise for Games Workshop, Warhammer 40,000. And Skirmish Gaming, as per our channel, is growing. It's becoming the more popular choice, purely for the reason that it's simpler to play, easier to buy into, simpler to play, simpler to set up and play through nice and quick of an evening. It's the reason I got into Skirmish Gaming myself, so and why I set up the channel. But yeah, certainly I think a Kill Team reboot is needed. If you were to rebuild the game in the vein of a Warcry type thing, how amazing would that be? The day we get an announcement for the Kill Team reboot, I'm going to be absolutely jumping all over that, and you guys know that I will be, and I'll be super excited for that. I cannot wait for the time when we get it. But yeah, I'm super excited for that. And I cannot wait for some of these kind of games to reboot it, if you like. Some more comments there. Zombie Dad says, is there a Terminator miniature game? Terminator miniature game would be a good one, wouldn't it? Fairly big universe as well. You could I'm not massive on Terminator, so I'm not is it Genesis, I want to say, is the I can't remember. I think Genesis was one of the films, actually, the company that all the Terminators created by or something. I can't remember now. Not the biggest of Terminator fans. I love the second film. Great film. But yeah, I'm not big on the lore behind it, but I could certainly see that being small miniature games, definitely. Just others, there's been games that have gone out of production now that weren't popular enough or just didn't have a good enough rule set or weren't advertised well enough, and so went under. For example, recently, the Aliens versus Predator skirmish game was released. There was a starter set and they started to release some expansions. Great universe, great setting, perfect for a skirmish game, and went under. I can't remember why it went under now. Probably just wasn't marketed well enough, or a lot of the time these games companies tend to have problems with the rights. They didn't technically have the rights properly nailed down before they really started releasing stuff. And so the companies they're involved with tend to shut them down, really. We've seen it with many other games. So yeah, there are many games that have gone out of print or have been done before but not well enough that certainly could come back, and that's one of them. I think that could be reintroduced. A lot of people are turning to Dead Zone instead of Kill Team now. Says Josh. Yeah, Dead Zone's one on the radar. Josh, by Mantic. So I know they've got Kings of War Vanguard as well. One thing actually, guys, throw a like on the video, please, if you're watching. Be a great help, and leave us a comment if you haven't already. And also share the video if you can. But more importantly, if you're a regular watcher, or etc., from as little as $1 a month, you can sign up to our Patreon page and gain access to some extras, but support the channel as well at the end of the day, because we want to keep growing. We need the support to keep going. So it'd be amazing if you can sign up and join us all on the Patreon page. We have some good chats over there as well. Every time I do one of these vids each week, I do a 10 to 15 minute exclusive video for members only that I put on the Patreon page. And this week I am actually talking about the Mantic games, because we're going to be considering introducing those to the channel as well. But yes, Josh, yeah, Dead Zone's definitely one on the radar, and we'll certainly think about getting that involved on the channel. A lot of people do tend to say like the similarities between Kings of War and Dead Zone to 40k and Age of Sigmar are uncanny. Like, they are very, very similar, and you can see that they've copied a lot of what they've done. But the game systems apparently are very cool, so we'll certainly be looking into that. Obviously, like I say, that is why we need people to pump a little bit of supplies into the channel and things like that through the likes of Patreon, sharing the videos, helping boost the channel. Then we can bring more of these skirmish games into the channel and become what we really want to become, essentially. Get better equipment, all that jazz. But certainly you can go over and check out Patreon. Throw a like on the video, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Zombie Dad says Kill Team needs a reboot. Yes, Sai. Yeah, definitely. It really does. And we will all look forward to that, along with hopefully many of these games to come. Age of Mythology, Pokemon Battles, Avatar Last Airbender, Elementals type game, Dead by Daylight, horror survival style game, Transformers. 5 awesome franchises that could be turned into a game. Skirmish miniature game. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Throw a like on the video. Thanks so much to everyone in the live comments who's joined us and been watching this whole time. Been great chatting to you guys as always when we do one of these live. But otherwise, we'll see you next time, and happy skirmishing.